Hey, welcome back to Well, That's Interesting, the Don't You Dare Make Me Cry edition. Today is episode 183, How Woolly Mammoth Tusks Are Like Diaries. And yeah, love can physically heal a heart. My friends, today is going to be nothing short of epic. We will be journeying through a cinematic tale which took place hundreds of thousands through tens of thousands of years ago, and we'll also be taking a look at your heart and how in the not-too-distant future it can be healed. In the first half of the show, that cinematic tale will be the life and death of a female woolly mammoth so lovingly nicknamed Elma. Now, I'm not going to give away the highs and lows of her life here in the intro, but I can tell you, thanks to Elma, we now have a much clearer picture of where woolies started out their lives, where they migrated as they grew, and where they congregated in their later years. For you see, it was Elma's 6-foot-long tusk, 6 feet long, that explained it all, year after year. Now, you may be asking, how can a tusk be encrypted with such details, and how in the holy hell could we even read it if we find such a thing? Oh, my friends, that's part of the epic tale. You know the old saying, it's what's on the inside that counts? Well, holy shit, this is one hell of an example of that. Then after the break, speaking of the importance of things on the inside, researchers from Michigan State University have recently discovered a doozy of a pickle. The neurohormone oxytocin, which will forever be known as the love hormone or bonding hormone, manufactured by the hypothalamus and shipped out by the pituitary gland, is involved with a ton of shit. From generating pleasurable feelings to helping us build relations and read social cues, this here hormone also has other more surprising functions, such as the regulation of lactation and uterine contractions. But wait, there's more. It also plays a role in ejaculation, sperm transport, and testosterone production. No one asked for any of this. And it may seem like oxytocin is that one friend who is all up in your business, but it might be for the best. My friends, those Michigan State researchers have just found another unsuspected function. Are you sitting down? Because I recommend it. Turns out, oxytocin can stimulate a subset of cells in the outer layer of the heart, transforming them into muscle cells, extremely important muscle cells, like the ones that generate heart contractions, aka the ones that make your heart pump. Oh God, my gentle business goose, this means oxytocin could one day be used to regrow a section of the human heart after something as serious as cardiac arrest. Yeah, the poetry of the air quotes love hormone being able to physically heal a heart is not lost here. Now, how in the holy hell these researchers discovered this fun fact won't be missed either. We will get into their experiment, which involved human tissue and fish. Yes, fish. In the meantime, I'm Jill Chacha, and if this is your first time listening, welcome to the flock, my amorous business goose. To begin, you're going to need the thickest coat you can find because we first need to become acquainted with a woolly mammoth hotspot. And please, don't let the word spot fool you. We're about to make a very big rectangle. Please, everyone, imagine Canada. Thank you. Now please point to the very west where it shares a border with Alaska. Awesome, fabulous. Now trace your finger from the very bottom of that border to the very top. Great job. This entire fucking area, plus hundreds of miles to the right, is the Yukon. Hello. And now that we're at the very top of this border, we're gonna make a sharp left, and you're gonna keep moving your finger left until you hit the middle of Alaska. Perfect. Okay. Now make your way back down, cutting through the middle of Alaska to the very bottom. And when you hit that shore, make your way back over to the Yukon. Just fantastic. That enormous chunk of land we just covered, once upon a time, from 100,000 years ago up until 14,000 years ago, contained the birthplace and migration patterns of herds of woolly mammoths, which is pretty fucking cool. Now, please use that same finger to open up our social media stuffs and tap on today's post. I highly, highly, highly recommend it because there you'll see a map of this area and some handy-dandy color-coded sections that provide even more detail. You're going to see a brownish smear in the north, where it's believed solitary males once roamed. In the lower right, you'll see a purple blot in the Yukon, where matriarchs and their herds of juveniles, sisters, and aunts were believed to have spent the majority of their time. If you look even closer, you'll see a squiggly black line that knots itself within that purple blot, and although it crisscrosses back and forth, eventually the line goes up and over to the left, over a gray area towards Alaska. The black line ends in a smaller purple blot, indicating, yes, this is an area where matriarchs and their herds were also thought to hang out. Well, now, my well-traveled business goose, you've probably figured out that the line we just traced was a path taken by a female woolly mammoth. Yes, you're absolutely right. But this simple-looking map fails to explain the adventures behind that migration. Let's get into it. My friends, let's head on over to the University of Alaska Fairbanks, where we are joined with the very appropriately named Matthew Wooler, director of the Stable Isotope Facility, study co-author Karen Spelita, and evolutionary geneticist Hendrik Poyner of McMaster University. Now, these folks, along with colleagues from the University of Ottawa, they love them some woolly mammoths. I mean, come on. Who isn't enraptured with these giant beasts from another age who actually shared the world with our ancestors? Put a pin in that, by the way. Now, over the decades, with whatever technology has been available to us, other equally obsessed researchers have slowly revealed more and more about these creatures. For example, like I alluded to just before, quote, mammoths are presumed to have behaved much like modern elephants, with females and juveniles living in a close-knit matriarchal herd, and mature males traveling alone or in looser male groups, often with larger home ranges than females. End quote, from eurekaalert.org. And, get this, my toothy business goose, woolly mammoths grew their tusks much like our living pachyderm friends. With each passing day, a thin, cone-shaped layer of minerals would build up on the tip. I like to describe it as ice cream cones stacked on top of each other. Wooler, who loves the woolies, told the New York Times. So, as you can imagine, my Sherlocky business goose, this discovery of these rings opened up a biological floodgate. With the machinery of the 1980s, chemical analysis of tusks revealed how baby mammoths weaned from their mothers and how diets shifted with the seasons. With the progress of DNA analysis through the 1990s and 2000s, herd lineage could be made. And thanks to the wonders of today's AI and terrifyingly quick programs, even one minute piece of a tusk can reveal a lifetime. Strontium, my friends, strontium is an element found in trace amounts in plants who suck it up from the soil. Now, being herbivores, plants were the main source of food for woolly mammoths. If a single woolly mammoth spent a couple of days grazing in a place where strontium was present in the soil, the cone of minerals it grew during that time period would end up with that level of strontium. Now, if you think about it, if we could match that specific level of strontium in a tusk to the level in soil samples, we could tell where that woolly has been. Sounds like a pretty good idea, right? Well, yeah, you're absolutely right. That's exactly the idea Wooler had back in 2021 when, quote, Dr. Wooler and his colleagues analyzed the strontium in a tusk of a 17,100-year-old male mammoth. Kick, as they nicknamed the animal, died far above the Arctic Circle when he was 28. The scientists cut open one of his 8-foot-long tusks with a huge bandsaw. Oh my god, I'm sorry, just 8 feet long. Okay. The layers at the tip of his tusk had strontium levels that matched the site where he had been unearthed. The researchers then looked at a layer formed a week before his death and searched a geochemical map for places where Kick might have been that had a matching strontium level. The team worked back through time week after week, piecing together Kick's whereabouts over the course of his life. As it turned out, Kick grew up far from the northern reaches where he met his end. When he was a young mammoth, he followed his herd around eastern Alaska. In his adult years, Kick moved widely across central Alaska. And in the last 18 months of his life, he ended up on the north side of the Brooks Range, where he likely died of starvation. End quote. From Carl Zimmer of the New York Times. My friends, this story, these discoveries were fucking revelations. A map showing how mammoths in this part of the world lived out their entire lives was coming into focus. If that map sounds familiar, we used it in the beginning of the show. It began with Kick, and it really came together when Elma's tusk was found and analyzed. Now, the female woolly mammoth Elma, whose full name is Elma Uja, given by the Healy Lake Village Council, was discovered at Swan Point. And for my fellow geographically challenged Americans, don't worry. If you take a gander at that map over on our social media stuffs, you shall see a tiny, tiny white elephant in that smaller purple blot to the far left. That's where Elma was found. A few fun facts about Swan Point. It is the oldest archaeological site in Alaska. Archaeological site, and it dates back, get this, 14,000 years. Yeah, there's evidence that its indigenous inhabitants had been there for 14,000 years. Holy shit. If that sounds like a lot, it is. But woolly mammoths have been at Swan Point even longer. They've been in North America for about 100,000 years. And for a brief time, for about 1,000 years, humans and woolly mammoths shared Swan Point. Well, I say shared, but that isn't the right word. It wasn't neighborly by any means. Humans camped in Swan Point because mammoths migrated here. Long story short, mammoths were sitting ducks, and they were hunted. This is how Elma probably met her demise. But I'm getting ahead of myself here. There's a tale to tell. Thanks to Wooler and the gang's isotopic strontium analysis extravaganza of Elma's 6-foot-long tusk, we know that she was born at the end of the last ice age in what is now western Yukon. That large purple dot on the map there all the way to the right. Now, little baby mammoth Elma, I know, grew up here in the Yukon until the age of 10 or so. Now, this age may seem young to us, but in wild woolly mammoth years, perhaps not. Because it was at this age, Elma headed west. Now, that gray smear on the map may look teeny, but my friends, to put that gray area into context, Elma traversed over a frozen landscape covering roughly 620 miles, or 1,000 kilometers in total, and it took her 3 years to make this trek. Wow. Now, you may be asking, why? Driving for like 30 minutes on a sunny day can be a pain in the ass. Why walk for 3 years. What was wrong with the purple area in the Yukon? Well, good question, my tired business goose. Quote, maybe resources dried up there and she just spent a while trying to find another preferable area to live in, said Audrey Rowe, a grad student at the University of Fairbanks and the researcher who actually cut open Elma's tusk. Audrey said this to Carl Zimmer of the New York Times. So yeah, it may have been to find food and nourishment. And if mammoths are anything like modern-day elephants, it's possible Elma instinctually headed west to Alaska, like her mother and her mother before her. My friends, this was 14,000 years ago, as the last ice age was slowly coming to a close and temperatures finally settled. They dropped, killing off plants the mammoths depended on. So it's possible Elma took a gamble and went west, using a memory, heading to a location that just may have the life-sustaining flat grasslands she's looking for. 3 years later, 3 years, the gamble paid off. There were flat grasslands as far as the eye could see. But there were humans there too. Well, Elma didn't die alone. In fact, there's a really good chance she didn't even make the trek alone. It's possible she was the matriarch of a small herd. Yeah. With her was found a baby mammoth and a juvenile whose DNA revealed all three were, quote, closely related, end quote, from Eureka Alert. I know. I'm not crying. Get this. Elma was probably following her instincts. Continuing from Eureka, quote, the McMaster University team extracted and analyzed ancient DNA from the tusk of Elma UJA, which revealed she was closely related to other mammoths from the same site, and more distantly related to others from a nearby site called Holzman. End quote. Yeah. It's just so cool. And it's probably safe to say that second smaller purple blot to the left in Alaska, which is Swan Point, it was a mammoth migration spot. It was confirmed thanks to Elma, who lived to 20 years old and whose tusk just told us so much. By the way, Elma UJA translates to hella looking. In the Aboriginal Kaska language, I swear to God, it means hella looking. Now, okay, wait. On one hand, I personally wouldn't mind people saying I left a hella-looking corpse, but on the other, it's like getting catcalled, even in death, a little bit. So, think about it. Anyway, Elma, here's to you. After the break, if you're not already feeling all the fucking feels deep down in your heart, please stay tuned. We're about to get literal. We're busting open our chest cavity and peering into the human heart. A new discovery about an old friend may help it physically heal in the not-too-distant future. I shall explain.
With the Lucky Land Slots, you can get lucky just about anywhere.
This is your captain speaking. We've got clear runway and the weather's fine, but we're just going to circle up here a while and get lucky. No, nothing like that. It's just these cash prizes add up quick. So I suggest you sit back, keep your tray table upright, and start getting lucky.
Play for free at LuckyLandSlots.com. Are you feeling lucky? No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18+ terms and conditions apply. See website for details.
When Johann Rall received the letter on Christmas Day 1776, he put it away to read later. Maybe he thought it was a season's greeting and wanted to save it for the fireside. But what it actually was a warning, delivered to the Hessian colonel, letting him know that General George Washington was crossing the Delaware and would soon attack his forces. The next day, when Rall lost the Battle of Trenton and died from 2 colonial Boxing Day musket balls, the letter was found, unopened, in his vest pocket. As someone with 15,000 unread emails in his inbox, I feel like there's a lesson there. Oh well, this is The Constant, a history of getting things wrong. I'm Mark Chrysler. Every episode, we look at the bad ideas, mistakes, and accidents that misshaped our world. Find us at constantpodcast.com or wherever you get your podcasts.
And we're back. We are so back. And my friends, I ask you, how much do you know about the human heart? Now, if you're like me and you said, to be honest, not that much, please don't feel bad about it. Turns out, even seasoned researchers in biomedical engineering learn something new about the heart every day. Let's start with the few things we, meaning researchers, do know. Like a tasty cake, the heart is made of layers, including the outer layer, called the epicardium, and the middle layer, or myocardium. If you need a visual, don't worry, I've got you. Head on over to our social media stuffs and swipe through all the photos of Wooler and the gang probing Elma's tusk, and you'll come to an artist's rendition of these layers. Put a pin in them for me, if you will. Well, not literally, of course, that's dangerous. Also, within your delicate heart are cells called cardiomyocytes. And no big deal, but these highly specialized cells are responsible for making your heart go pitter-patter. They're the reason your heart is able to pump. According to the National Institutes of Health, or the NIH, cardiomyocytes are the cells responsible for the contraction of the heart. Utilizing an intricate network of contractile proteins and ion transporters for this work, with the main purpose of effectively executing the contraction-relaxation cycle. End quote. Fuck. Talk about important. This is a high-stakes role. I would not accept it. I would not be able to handle this kind of pressure. Lucky for you and me, these cells answer the call. And good news, quote, remarkably, despite the substantial functional and metabolic demands placed on cardiomyocytes during the course of a lifetime, some of these cells survive for more than half a century. End quote from the NIH. Yeah, fucking some of these heart cells live for 50 years. That is mind-blowingly long for any human cell, if you think about it. Well, since you're already thinking, I bet an intrusive thought popped in like, oh, that's great. Wait, only 50? Do they grow back? What if something happens to them, like getting damaged somehow? What then? Well, great questions, my fellow neurotic business goose. Good news, because they are such highly specialized cells, they can't replenish. Yeah, it sounds devastating, doesn't it? Well, hold on to your fleeting cheeks. Things are about to change. Not end quote, quote. Oh God, here we show that oxytocin, a neuropeptide also known as the love hormone, is capable of activating heart repair mechanisms in injured hearts in zebrafish and human cell cultures, opening the door to potential new therapies for heart regeneration in humans, said Dr. Yator Aguari. Nailed it, an assistant professor at the Department of Biomedical Engineering of Michigan State University and the study's senior author. He said that to eurekalert.org. This is exciting. You heard Dr. A correctly. Oxytocin, the hormone responsible for all the feels, may be able to heal your heart after a physically devastating event like cardiac arrest. Now, you may be thinking, that's a little too on the nose here, but okay, I'll take it. How exactly did they find out? Again, I'm so glad you asked. We need to dive into Dr. A's study. So join me, will you, at Michigan State University, where Dr. A and the research gang are looking at some fish. Yes, you heard me. Fish. But not just any old fish. I'm talking about a lab researcher's best friend, the zebrafish. Now, If you're a longtime member of the flock, you know just how incredible these creatures are and just how much we have in common. Seriously. In the first half of episode 157, fish may sense each other's fear and glitter is in our water and that ain't good, we learned that 84% of genes associated with human disease have a zebrafish counterpart. Whoa. And, more whoa, zebrafish have their own version of empathy. Yeah, it doesn't stop there. These itty-bitty fish can also regenerate retina, internal organs, bones, skin, and fucking get this, parts of their brains. Now, that's something we don't share, regenerating organs, but, just but, Dr. A and the gang, well, they're an inquisitive group. And thank the heavens, because they just discovered, thanks to zebrafish, that we can at least regenerate part of the human heart. Yeah, let's get into it. So, when I said zebrafish can regrow internal organs, I'm sure you guessed by now that their heart is one of them. For you see, just like us, zebrafish have an epicardium and a subset of cells in the epicardium which, under certain circumstances and conditions, can undergo reprogramming to become stem-like cells called epicardium-derived progenitor cells, or EpiPCs for short. And these EpiPCs can transform into anything, into cardiomyocytes, for example. Yeah. Now, in humans, generally, on the best days, there are not enough EpiPCs naturally created to help return the number of cardiomyocytes to a level where the heart is as good as new. But zebrafish, holy shit, they can regrow all parts of their heart and regenerate up to 25% of it. A whole quarter of their heart could come back good as new. If you're wondering how in the fuck, so were Dr. A and the gang. That's why they were looking at some fish and performed the following experiment to find out what they were doing that we can't. Quote, the authors found that in zebrafish, within 3 days after cryo-injury or injury due to freezing to the heart, the expression of the messenger RNA for oxytocin increases up to 20-fold in the brain. They further showed that this oxytocin then travels to the zebrafish epicardium and binds to the oxytocin receptor, triggering a molecular cascade that stimulates local cells to expand and develop into EpiPCs. These new EpiPCs then migrate to the zebrafish myocardium to develop into cardiomyocytes, blood vessels, and other important heart cells to replace those which had been lost. End quote. From Eureka Alert. Holy fuck! Yes, that's right, in just 3 days, zebrafish had their little hearts back thanks to oxytocin. A neurohormone that we both share. We have this in common. So Dr. A asked, can the same results be possible for a human heart? Well, since you can't freeze a human, the researchers did the next best thing to find out. The team slapped some donated human tissue containing induced pluripoint stem cells onto a culture dish. And from here, they applied 15 different neurohormones to this tissue. And guess what? Yes, you're absolutely right. Only oxytocin was found to stimulate those stem cells into becoming EpiPCs. And to triple check that it was oxytocin all along behind this, oxytocin receptors were removed, which, drum roll please, thank you in the back, it resulted in a lack of EpiPCs. So round of fucking applause. Y'all, this is a big deal. It's a really big deal. And it was wonderfully summed up by Dr. A himself. Quote, oxytocin is widely used in the clinic for other reasons, so repurposing it for patients after heart damage is not a long stretch of the imagination. Even if heart regeneration is only partial, the benefits for patients could be enormous. Oxytocin itself is short-lived in circulation, so its effects in humans might be hindered by that. So drugs, specifically designed with a longer half-life or more potency, might be useful in this setting. Overall, preclinical trials and clinical trials are necessary to move forward. End quote. There you have it. There you have it, my robust business goose. One day, love, in pill form, may save your life. Thank you for listening, rating, subscribing, telling your friends about Elma. Fuck, Elma. God. Hella looking. Yeah, it's just so, yes, girl. And tell them about how love can, blah, 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 heal your heart. Okay, we got it. And an awkward kiss to the folks over at Airwave Media, the podcast network to which WTI belongs. If you love this show, and you do, you're going to love the other podcasts in this family. And please, stay interesting.